Today's talk is continuing the discussion around building a world that works for all. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Terrence Shea.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be back with you for a second week and to be able to continue the discussion that we began last week on the world that works for everyone, and specifically today looking at one way that we can show that the world works for everyone, and that is through freedom and the practicing of freedom. I'm inspired by Timothy Snyder's book on freedom, and I'll be talking about the very first section of it today. And I want to begin where I began last week with that wonderful quote from Myrtle Fillmore. And I'll bring it back to memory. God is life. We make that life into living. God is love. We make divine love into loving. God is substance. We take the substantial reality and bring it through into the manifest world. So I'm going to riff on what Myrtle said and say, and God is freedom. And we take that freedom that we are, and we bring it forth into the world as an expression. As the author of the song recognized, we are not born free. And if you think about your babes, if you think about your little ones, the very least thing that they are is free. They have come from you, entirely dependent on you, and they arrive on the planet even more dependent because now they're out here needing food, sustenance, care, love, education, all the things that we give them. And one of the things that we give them is hinted at in that song, and that is we give them the values, bit by bit, moment by moment, experience by experience. We give them the sense of what it means to be a human being in this world, in this society. And then we nurture what we've given them. And then we watch them mature into the people that will then do the same thing. And so the young man saying, "Nothing matters, Mary, when you're free. And you must raise our child to know that." So that's where we begin today. We begin speaking of Timothy Snyder's book. And by the way, it's in 5 sections. And it's based in the idea that there are 5 things that produce freedom. And so I'm only going to cover one of the 5 things today, and that is the idea of sovereignty. Sovereignty is an idea that is truly, truly sacred in Western culture. It is the idea that this being that I am is endowed with some sovereign essential life. Edith Stein was a philosopher at the turn of the 20th century, so just prior to the First World War. And she spoke of, let me back up and just say this. The Germans have 2 words for body. One is Leib, and the other is Körper. And Körper is where we get our word in English, corpse. So the Körper is our body, but it is a body that does not necessarily have to have Leib. And Leib is the beingness that Myrtle was talking about, the lovingness, the beingness, the essence, the sovereignty of who we are is our Leib. And freedom speaks to this idea of Leib und Körper, Are the people in our world Leib? Are they expressions of life and living? Or are they Körper? Are they a thing? The struggle of the Jews against the Nazis in Germany was a struggle to be seen as Leib and not just things. The struggles of black Africans in apartheid South Africa that we remember now from the 80s was a struggle not to be things, but to be people, to be seen as people, to be known as people, to be recognized as sovereign. And we're seeing this struggle played out again in various places in the world. We cannot know the freedom of another as other than us, because we must know our own personal sovereign freedom first. It is critical and it is central to where we come from. It's the very source of the Magna Carta. Sure, there's lots of stuff in it, but the idea is that individuals cannot be obliged to do something that is against their personhood. And that the king himself cannot oblige his subjects to do something that is at the expense of their personhood, their sovereignty. So today, that's really what we're talking about. And I want to share a story with you, which is kind of an interesting one. It's about the Liberty Bell. Everybody has seen the image of the Liberty Bell. It's from Philadelphia. I think it was created in 1774, so 2 years before the independence of the United States. And the popular story is that it was rung so vigorously to celebrate the revolution and the signing of the Declaration of Independence that it cracked. Is everybody familiar with that part of the story? It is untrue. It is not true. As a matter of fact, the bell was rung on Lincoln's birthday in 1851. And it was rung so vigorously at that time that that is when it broke. And inscribed on the bell is the idea from Leviticus, and I have it right here somewhere. Okay, I'm going to have to quote from memory. From Leviticus, let every man be returned to his household and to his goods. It was rung in 1851 on Washington's birthday. Washington's birthday. Thanks, Greg. To celebrate the abolitionist drive to free the slaves in America. This is a very important point, but it's a subtle one. You see, if it was rung to breaking point at the beginning of independence, it would be about something that was already. But ringing it for the future was a statement about what people believed was possible and what they believed was good. So this idea of having a freedom that is a thing that is here now or something to be attained is what Snyder talks about as false freedom and true freedom or real freedom. And he says this: positive freedom or real freedom is freedom to. It involves thinking about what I want to become and what I value and what I want to see achieved. False freedom, on the other hand, is freedom from. And it contains no program for its own realization. And therefore, it opens the way to tyrants who have a plan for their own freedom too. Now think about that. Freedom from slavery, freedom from oppression, freedom from want, freedom from hatred or discrimination, freedom from. But there's no plan on how to get freedom based on that. We know what we don't want, but there's no plan for what we do want. And when we have no plan for what we do want, you can be assured someone will step in who does have a plan for what he or she wants and will exercise that to get that freedom. Athenry is a town in County Donegal. It's what you would call a big town or a small city in Ireland. And because it's in the north, it was for a long time part of Northern Ireland and was ruled by a British lord. And there are still those in Britain who claim lordship over Athenry and the town. The idea that the author of the song spoke about is that the freedom to self-determination, our sovereignty as individuals, our choice, is what sets us free. We are not given freedom, but we are taught how to be free from the womb, from the moment that we arrive on the planet. But we have to practice how to be free. We have to practice how to transmit that value, in fact, that virtue, to others. These are 3 books that I work from and live from, really. The center book is by a hospice chaplain. His name is Stephen Jenkinson, and he talks about how to be an elder in our society. He talks about having gone to a gathering of people who referred to themselves as elders. And he said, the first thing I recognized when I got there was these people were not elders, they were just old. There's a subtlety there in that understanding that elders transmit something to the next generation. Now, you can be an elder at 20 if you're transmitting something to someone younger. And you can be just an old person at 40 if you're no longer giving, back. I once shared hidden blessings with a friend who was going through a midlife crisis. And it's a woman that I worked with at one point and did a lot of psychological training and background with. She's a psychologist in the Bay Area. Well, the next time I saw him, he threw the book at me, literally, and said, "This is crap." He said, this is not a good book. And I said, "Why not?" He said, "Well, Keith, it makes me ask all kinds of questions that I don't want to ask myself." Like one of the ones I quoted to you last week. What is it that you're not willing to be honest with yourself about? He said, I don't want to be thinking about those questions. And I said, well, welcome to midlife and to the refashioning of who you are over the next X number of years. We get to a place in our lives where we no longer have to worry about necessarily how to create a career, create a family, make our way in the world. And when we get to that place, all of the work that our ego has been involved in for the last 40, 50, maybe even 60 years, suddenly your ego has nothing more to do. But in fact, it has much more to do. And that is to take you into the second half of life. It's almost, I like to think of it as giving your ego a new job description. Now its job is to help you realize this person that you might have had to put on hold for a while because you had other things that were really pressing and important and valuable. But now it's your time to make of this man or woman the person that gives from the fullness that it now knows that it is. I'm looking out. How many people out here, just raise your hand if you're aware of the fullness that you are? Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, that's the good beginning of the transformation. The last book, is the actual spiritual practice involved in doing this deepening, strengthening, and transformational work. It's written by a Buddhist teacher, and so as you can imagine, it is steeped in practice and practical awareness and practical purpose of what it means to be in midlife and moving inexorably to that wonderful moment of liberation when we get to come back home. I've been a hospice chaplain for 25 years now. And one of the things that I can tell you, the most profound moments I have had as a teacher, as a minister, as a parent, as a partner, they are none of them as profound as being with someone when they let go. And I'll tell you something. No one takes an in-breath when they pass. It's always an out-breath. The surrendering of life. The freedom that we have as a life is based in, and I'm grateful to Randy for sharing this with me. He invited me to watch or to listen to a podcast between Sharon Saltzman and John O'Donohue. And in that podcast, this is what Sharon Saltzman said. We have to see the bodies of others because otherwise we cannot see ourselves. We cannot see ourselves as subjects, and we cannot connect with the other. Now let's take this into the freedom concept. If I cannot see you as free, then I cannot actually see myself as free. I need to experience freedom out there to be able to know my own freedom. And so what it really implies is that I have to fight for the freedom out there so that I can know my own freedom. This idea that freedom is somehow my thing, that I get to exercise and that I get to experience and express, is a false notion. It's freedom from. And if you ask yourself about your own personal freedoms, and you ask yourself that in the context of freedom, you will most likely find that it is often freedom from. I'm free from want because I have the job that I want, or I'm earning the money that I want. I'm free from oppression because somebody has told me that I can't be oppressed. It's not right to oppress gay people or trans people or black people. But the freedom, too, comes from that moment that I look at you as a life, as a living expression of the one. And in that, I see myself. I see myself. One of my colleagues, religious science minister, just wrote a book on liberation theology. And, well, I'm going to just tell it. I went after him about it. I said, that is not in accordance with New Thought teaching. That is not in accordance with religious sciences, certainly not in accordance with unity. Because what it says is that freedom is something out there. A liberation has to happen so I can have it. And that is contrary to what we believe. We believe that freedom is now because it is an expression of that which we call God, the one, divine mind, source, all there is. Freedom is, but it's up to us to be the expressions of that freedom. Lech Walesa. Anybody remember that name? Lech Walesa, president of Poland, started out as a union organizer at the docks in Gdansk in Poland and created out of that free Poland. He and Pope John Paul were responsible for the expulsion of Russians from Poland and probably major players in the downfall of the Soviet Union. Why? Because they expressed the solidarity that Salzman and O'Donoghue discussed. How I am one with you. We are one with one another in this freedom to do something. How many out there are familiar with Plato's myth of the cave? Okay, good. Well, thank you. I'm going to just run through it very quickly so you know what I'm talking about, but it's central to this idea of freedom. The idea is that say everyone in this room, you're all sitting and looking up at me, and you're all chained, so you can't move. And your heads are restrained as well so that you can't look around. And so imagine yourself in that situation right now. And you're looking up at this screen. And on the screen, you're seeing things passing. You're seeing horses and men and people with objects carrying them and so on. And because you don't know anything else except you, in response to that screen, you believe that that's real. As a matter of fact, you believe that's all there is. Plato left the story somewhat like that, except that he hinted that what would happen if those people sitting out there, if suddenly you were aware that there was someone else nearby, even though you couldn't see them, who was looking at what you were looking at, who was experiencing what you were looking at, and that you could experience your solidarity with them. would that which you were looking at become more real or less real? What do you think? More people are looking at it, or at least you're aware of it, becomes more real. Yes? But what if you finally turn around and you see that what you're looking at isn't real at all, but is simply a reflection or a shadow? Because behind you, what you've been unaware of is that there are people passing in front of a light or a flame or a fire, and their shadows are being shown on the screen, very much like a movie. And suddenly, as you turn around and you realize everything that you thought was real and everything that you thought was supported in being real by the people around you is actually a pale reflection of reality. Because you see, they're simply shadows cast by what is real back there. Now I'm going to take this one step further. So you say to all the people around you, oh my God, look, that's reality. This is just make-believe. This is just a reflection. And so you say to them, and the guy at the fire says, huh, you think that's good? Come with me. And they take you out of the cave, and you see the sun shining, and you see all of the world available to you. The spiritual teaching that we are a part of is that invitation to stop looking at false reality, stop looking at a pseudo-reality created by other people, and step out into the sunlight, step out into the witness of God itself, and say, now I know what is real. This story really is about where we are as a people today. When I said freedom from or false freedom is the condition of someone else offering us freedom from something so that that person can exercise his or her freedom too. That is rampant today. And I'm not just talking about political leaders. I'm talking about society at large. You, me, all of us have a role to play in knowing the truth and in living that truth. And living the truth that God, however you see God, God is all there is. Everything is God in expression. But it might need a little bit of coaxing from time to time into a brighter experience of itself. I've shared this before, but I want to share it again because this is how I want to make my final point. I remember the first time I said this, as a matter of fact, the first time I said it here in this room, about 2.5 years ago perhaps. Someone really took me to task on it because it implied that there is no evil in the world, that there is only good. And they said, how could you possibly maintain that there is no evil in the world? And I said, because I cannot and will not believe in duality. I cannot and will not separate life into the good guys and the bad guys. So I said, so here's my example. You're all familiar with dimmer switches. I'm sure most of you have them in your house. Do you know how they work? Current coming in, and you set up a resistance in that switch. And the resistance, measured in ohms, resists the amount of electricity coming through the switch, therefore into the light. The less resistance, the more light. The more resistance, less light. Every single thing, from a rock to a snail to a human being to a whale on the planet, is the fullness of love and good. Unfortunately, some of us, me included, from time to time, put up a lot of resistance to that good. And we dim down our light, our love, our freedom, our joy, whatever it is, those wonderful values. Just because there's so little of my good in expression right now does not make me evil. It just makes me a very dimmed down version of good. I would much rather decrease the resistance to my good on an ongoing basis and brighten my world and yours. So, as I finish this lesson today on freedom, Snyder will say that freedom is the value of all values. Now, I don't 100% agree with him on that, because I believe the good is the value of all values. But freedom certainly is a way to express greater and greater good. So as I leave you today, I leave you with just this one thought. In the coming days, think about yourself expressing greater and greater freedom too. Greater and greater freedom to express the good in your life. So ends the lesson, and so it is. Namaste.
This song is called Welcome to This World. It's written about my new grandson, and it's the first time I've ever sung it. And I sang it for my family, actually, but I haven't sung it in public. And it's also a good message for just what Terry was just talking about. Welcome to this world of wonders. Each day you'll find something new. Every city and forest filled with delights just for you. Welcome to this world of loving, caring and growing in grace. It's pure love that expresses the joy that caresses your face. Your love is home and you're welcome. Your love is home and you're welcome. Welcome to this world of freedom. Freedom to grow and to play. Free to be the person that you want to be, your own way. Your love is home and you're welcome. Your love is home and you're welcome. You've made us so happy. Together we grow. Our blessings and hearts overflow. You make our lives so joy-filled. New hope is born on this day. You will always be loved. This world is your music to play. Your love is home, and you're welcome. Your love is home, and you're welcome. Your love is home, and you're welcome.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much. So beautiful, amazing. We are so blessed to have you here with us. And thank you, Reverend Terrence. Such an inspiring talk today. Thank you. And coming up soon at Unity, our next Explore Your Inner Being class is on Thursday, November 28th from 7 to 9 on the lower level. For more information, visit the Unity website. Also, Talent Night has been canceled and will be rescheduled in the new year. And just a reminder, we now have child minding on Sundays for children ages 3 to 10. If you know of anyone who might want to take advantage of this new service, please let them know. And check out our A Course in Miracles study group live this Tuesday from 12:30 to 2:30 right here at Unity on the lower level. Well, it is definitely fall, and we could use a few extra hands to keep Unity's grounds beautiful. For those of you who would like to contribute a little time, we would love you to join our Sacred Space Yard Care team. No experience needed, just sign up at the front desk. And today's affirmative prayer chaplains are Carol Roman, Raymond Lancaster, Shirley Thompson, and on Zoom, Caroline Conlin. Would you please stand so we can see who you are? Thank you. Thank you for your service to the light. I highly recommend those prayers. They are healing, they are magical, and they will help you manifest your dreams. So to have a confidential prayer with one of the chaplains, simply come up to the front after all the music has finished, and you will find the chaplains in the front row. They will be happy to support you in prayer. And if you're watching on Zoom, I will show you how to participate in just a few minutes. And finally, please join us for tea, coffee, cookies, and conversation after the service. And now, as we bring our gathering to a close, please stand and let us together say our prayer for protection. All together now. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.